The sky turned black without warning. The stars above the alien city of Theraxis blinked out one by one, swallowed by something massive. Alari was still in training when the alarms began. Sirens screamed through the towers, and all warriors were told to arm themselves. No one knew who the enemy was, but something had arrived in their space, something that didn't answer hails or threats. She had trained for war all her life. Her people, the Draca, believed in strength above all. Weakness was punished. Doubt was shame. Mercy was forbidden. Alari had passed every trial with fury in her blood. Her body bore the glowing marks of a warrior, earned in combat and pain. Yet that day she had felt something strange. Fear. Their skies fell before the battle even started. The dark shape above their world split open. From it came something small and fast. Not an army, not a fleet. Just one ship. One vessel, human-made. The elders thought it was a trick. They laughed. But the laughter stopped when that one ship erased their outer defense ring in a flash of burning white light. Draca fighters rose to face it. Dozens, then hundreds. Each one was destroyed in seconds. No one had seen technology like this. It didn't even fire weapons they could track. It moved like it knew where everything was before it happened. Cities fell next. Not destroyed. Disabled. Power died. Gravity shut down. Weapons stopped working. Nothing was burning, but nothing worked. Then the humans landed. They didn't come with tanks. They didn't send legions. Just a few, moving fast, covered in strange armor, eyes glowing. Behind smooth helmets, the Draca charged them, screamed their war cries, used their strength and claws and blades. It didn't matter. The humans moved like shadows. They struck with calm precision. They didn't shout. They didn't celebrate. They just moved forward, and Draca fell. Alari had watched her commander die in front of her. His body was flung. Across the plaza, armor cracked, spine snapped. The human hadn't even raised his voice. Alari had fought harder then. She didn't know fear anymore, just rage. She had faced the human head-on. Her claws slashed. Her blade screamed through the air. She expected him to kill her in return. He should have. She was ready. But he didn't. His weapon struck her chest. Not deep enough to kill, just enough to drop her. She lay there, breath frozen, blood warm. Her arm wouldn't move. She waited for the final blow, but it never came. Instead, the human did something she didn't understand. He knelt beside her. Not to mock, not to finish her. He pressed something to her wound. It hissed and sealed. Her pain faded. He placed her broken arm in a sling. His armor hissed open near the face. For the first time, she saw his eyes. They were not glowing, not hateful, just tired. Alari asked in a whisper why he didn't kill her. He didn't answer. He just looked at her like she wasn't his enemy. Then he stood up and walked away, leaving her alive, confused, and changed. That moment spread like fire among the survivors. Warriors who were captured were treated. Some were even released. No torture, no displays, just silence. The Draca didn't understand it. This was not how humans were supposed to act. The story said humans were monsters, deathworlders who burned and took everything. But this one at least had chosen to let her live. Alari's view of the war shattered that day. Everything she believed about strength, about enemies, about mercy. It all cracked under that quiet stare. And deep inside, something began to shift. She was still alive. But nothing felt the same anymore. Alari woke in a Draca medical ward that was half destroyed. The ceiling above her was cracked, the lights flickering. She sat up slowly, her shoulder wrapped in strange synthetic material, not Draca made. It was human tech. She remembered the human warrior clearly. He could have ended her. He didn't. Others in the ward were whispering. Warriors, once proud and cruel, now confused and quiet. None had been tortured. None had been shamed. Most had been healed with precision tools and strange glowing gel. The humans didn't talk to them, they didn't ask for surrender. They just treated wounds and left. For a Draca, this was not war. This was something else. It made them angry and afraid. Outside, the city still stood. Broken, but not ruined. Machines didn't work. Communications were down. But the buildings were intact. No ash. No screams. The humans had taken over the power grid in silence. Their forces moved through the city with calm steps. They never looked rushed. Never showed emotion. Just duty. Alari didn't like the feeling in her chest. She wanted to hate them. Wanted to believe they were playing some mind trick. But something about the way that human had looked at her like she mattered. It kept coming back. Later that night, a group of Draca survivors tried to escape through the lower tunnels. They were found by human patrols. Alari watched from a cracked window as the humans surrounded them. The Draca warriors bared their teeth, expecting death. But it didn't come. The humans held up their hands. They spoke calmly. And after some tense silence, the Draca were escorted. Not captured, but guided back to safety. Alari gripped the window frame, heart pounding. These were not monsters. They were something else. But she couldn't understand why. She had been raised to believe humans were cruel and wild, that they burned entire planets, that they killed even children. Her instructors showed her videos, old battlefield footage. But now the enemy she had feared had saved her life. He had spared others. He had shown discipline stronger than any Draca leader. The next day, the human who had spared her returned. He walked into the medical center like he belonged there. His armor was clean, his posture alert. Alari's breath caught. She didn't know why. He walked up to her and gently placed something on the table, a small black device. It blinked once and projected an image. Her mother's house, her training camp, the hills of her homeland, untouched. He was showing her that her world hadn't been destroyed. Alari didn't speak. She didn't know how. He finally did. "We are not here to wipe out your people," he said softly. "We came to stop what your leaders began." Alari stared at him. Her hands trembled. She had always believed her world was defending itself, that the humans had attacked first. But now she wasn't sure. "Why didn't you kill me?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. His face stayed still. "Because I saw your eyes," he said, "and I knew you didn't want to die." Then he turned and left the room. That sentence broke something inside her. Not because it was soft, because it was true. She had wanted to live. Even when she charged him, deep down, she had been afraid. And he had seen it. He had known. No Draca warrior had ever said that to her. No one ever noticed her fear. But the human had. Alari sat there long after he left, feeling like the world she knew had turned upside down. The war outside was still real. But now, something bigger was starting, inside her, something she couldn't name yet. Alari didn't leave the ward for 2 more days. She watched the humans through the cracked window. They weren't like the warriors she had trained to fight. They moved with calm purpose, never wasting time or energy. Their weapons stayed lowered. Their voices were quiet. Even their footsteps sounded light, not heavy with dominance. She couldn't tell if that made them less dangerous or more. Her thoughts were loud, though. She kept thinking about the human who spared her. The way he saw her, not as prey, not as an enemy, but as a person. That confused her. The Draca trained their warriors to see enemies as targets, not as beings with faces or fears. She had followed that code all her life. Until now. One morning, she stepped outside for the first time. The city felt strange, too quiet. There were no patrols, no drones flying overhead. Instead, humans worked alongside Draca engineers, repairing power lines and setting up strange metal towers. Some Draca looked ashamed. Others looked relieved. None dared attack. Alari moved through the crowd unnoticed. Her armor had been replaced, with soft civilian clothing. She hated how exposed she felt. No claws, no plating, no symbols of rank. Just her. Bare and unsure. Then she saw him again. The human stood near one of the new towers. He was scanning a screen, talking to another soldier. His voice was low, his words short. But when he saw her, he stopped. Their eyes met. Alari froze. She didn't know what to say. He didn't either. But he stepped toward her slowly, giving her time to walk away if she wanted. She didn't. "I'm not your prisoner," she said first, trying to sound strong. "You're not," he agreed. "Then why are you watching me?" He didn't flinch. "Because you look like someone searching for the truth." That hit harder than she expected. Alari clenched her jaw. "Why are you doing this, healing us, fixing our systems? What do you want from us?" He looked around at the city. "Peace," she scoffed. "Peace doesn't come through invasion." His reply was calm. "Sometimes it starts with stopping. A worse one." She didn't understand. Not yet. That night she couldn't sleep. His words kept playing in her head. She remembered the Draca broadcasts. Loud and proud. Always telling them how the humans were violent, wild, untamed. But she had seen none of that in him. She decided to learn more. The next morning, she followed the human convoy leaving the city. Walls. They were heading to the outer border, once filled with defense cannons and blast turrets. Now silent. She climbed a ridge and saw it. Draca soldiers, dozens of them, surrounded by human guards. But there was no battle, no blood. The Draca had been caught trying to ambush a human supply group. They had failed. But instead of punishment, the humans were giving them food and water. Alari watched in disbelief. One Draca threw the water away, in defiance. Another cursed the humans in their own language. But the humans didn't respond with anger. They didn't even raise their weapons. One simply said, "You can drink it or stay thirsty. Your choice." Alari's heart raced. She had never seen anyone treat her people like this, not even other Draca. She turned and ran back to the city, her thoughts storming. Something was wrong. Or maybe something was finally right. This wasn't just a war. It was a message. And she needed to understand it before everything changed. Alari stood at the edge of the old war hall, a place once used to plan attacks. Now it had become something else. The humans had set up a command post inside, but there were no threats, no trophies, no captured banners, just screens, maps, and calm voices. She watched from the shadows. The human who had spared her stood in the center, surrounded by others of his kind. Most wore the same armor, but he looked different. He wasn't giving orders, he was listening. A Draca elder, once a feared warrior, stood on the opposite side of the room. He had surrendered days ago. Now he spoke not with pride, but with worry. "Our people will not understand this," the elder said. "You fight without anger, you strike without cruelty. It is not how war is meant to be." The human didn't respond for a moment. "War isn't meant to be anything," he finally said. "It's what happens when understanding fails." Alari felt that sentence strike something deep inside. For a long time, her people had been told they were strong because they never hesitated. That fear made you weak. That kindness invited defeat. But now the humans were doing everything the Draca believed was foolish, and they were winning. Later that evening, Alari was summoned. She didn't expect it, but she obeyed. 2 human soldiers stood at her door, calm but firm. They escorted her without chains, without weapons. No fear. Just respect. Inside the command post, the human she remembered stood waiting. "I heard you've been watching," he said. Alari didn't deny it. "I don't understand you," she replied. "You fight with strength, but you don't use it to crush. You could have destroyed everything, why didn't you?" He walked to a screen and tapped it. It showed a distant Draca city, untouched by war. "Because we've seen what destruction does," he said. "To others, to ourselves." Alari frowned. "You expect us to believe you're here to help?" "No," he said. "We expect you to see for yourself." He handed her a tablet. It showed records, messages from human commanders, reports of restraint, plans to avoid civilian zones. She scrolled through them, searching for a lie, a trick. She found none. One report caught her attention. It was about her. Subject, Drekka warrior, Alari. Combat encountered. Chose non-lethal response. Reason, observed hesitation, suspected internal conflict. Her hand shook slightly. You wrote this? She asked. I did, he said. You weren't trying to win. You were trying to survive. Alari didn't know what to say. She had never admitted fear to anyone, not even herself. But this stranger had seen it in a moment and chosen mercy instead of death. You saw weakness, she said bitterly. No, he replied. I saw someone questioning everything they'd been taught. That was the truth she had been avoiding. Everything she believed was falling apart, not because of defeat, but because of a simple act of choice. He motioned for her to follow. Together, they walked through the silent streets. No guards, no orders, just two beings walking side by side. They passed by humans helping Drekka children lift a broken solar panel. They saw medics treating the sick, no questions asked. This isn't what I expected, Alari whispered. It's not what we expected either, the human said quietly. But we're trying to be better than what we were. They stopped, by a fountain cracked but still flowing. The light from the water shimmered between them. You could leave, he said. We won't stop you. Alari looked at him, unsure. And if I stay? She asked. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. Then, maybe, we begin something new. Alari stayed. She didn't make any promises. She didn't take any oaths. But when morning came, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked back into the human camp and asked if she could help. The human who had spared her, his name was Darren, nodded. He didn't look surprised. He simply gave her a task. Come with me, he said. We're going to the old transmitter tower. The walk was long, through broken roads and shattered trees. The war had not touched this part directly, but its silence felt heavy. Birds didn't sing here. Wind didn't move the same way. Alari noticed Darren always walked on the side of danger, closer to crumbled walls and high ground, just in case something attacked. He was careful, not out of fear, but instinct. When they reached the tower, two Drekka civilians were already there, an old woman and a young boy. They were scared at first, but Alari stepped forward. They're not here to hurt us, she told them. They're trying to fix what we've lost, the old woman spat on the ground. You believe their lies, now? I've seen what they do, Alari said. And I've seen what we've done. The woman didn't answer, but she didn't attack either. That was enough. Inside the tower, Darren worked in silence. Alari watched him. Every movement had purpose. He didn't speak unless needed. He didn't explain everything. But slowly, piece by piece, the power nodes began to glow. Alari stepped beside him, placing her hand on one of the panels. The interface was different now, rewired by human tech, but she learned quickly. You pick up things fast, Darren said without looking up. I was trained to adapt. He paused for a second. You were trained to kill. She didn't answer. After, the tower powered up. The city lights blinked once, then twice. Then the entire west side lit up. Civilians came out from hiding. Some clapped, some watched in silence. But for the first time in days, the city breathed again. Darren looked at her. You just helped save more lives than you've ever taken. That sentence stayed with her. That night, Alari sat alone on the rooftop of a ruined building, staring at the stars. She thought about the world outside, what other Drekka cities were thinking, how the elders would call her a traitor if they saw her now. But something inside her had changed. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. She remembered the first time she held a blade. She had been only 8. Her hands were too small to grip it properly. But her father had watched and said, "You will never drop it, even in death." She had lived by that rule for years. Now she wasn't sure if she still believed it. The sound of boots on stone pulled her from thought. Darren stood a few feet away, holding 2 metal canisters. He tossed one to her. "Water," he said, "human style, not poisoned." She smirked and opened it. "You always this dramatic? Only with people who glare at the stars like they owe them a fight." She looked at him closely. "You don't act like a killer," she said. "I've been one," he replied. "Then why are you here?" He looked at the sky, same as her. "To make sure I don't become one again." Alari didn't speak after that. She just sat there feeling the quiet night, the strange warmth of not being alone. Whatever this was between them, it wasn't trust, not yet. But it wasn't hate either, and that meant something was beginning. Alari was no longer seen as just a soldier, not by the humans, not even by some of her own people. Word spread quickly about how she had helped repair the tower, how she had spoken in the humans' presence without anger. Some called her a traitor, others called her brave, but no one ignored her anymore. The city was quiet, but not dead. Life had started to return. Markets opened in small corners. Draca and humans passed each other without drawing weapons. No one smiled yet, but no one bled either. Alari had questions. Too many to ignore now. Why were the humans really here? What had started this war? Why had Darren spared her? One morning she went to find answers. Darren was in the old command center again. Maps and data floated above the large table. He looked tired, dark shadows under his eyes. But he still stood straight, as if he was holding up the room himself. "I want to see the files," Alari said. He didn't ask which ones, he handed her a device. "You'll need to see everything, not just the pieces your leaders showed you." Alari spent hours going through it. It felt like falling through space with no end. She saw the beginning of the war, a border outpost destroyed, not by humans, but by Draca ships. A misunderstanding, maybe. But the Draca leaders had lied. They blamed the humans, launched an attack before anyone could talk. She saw how the humans responded, not with full invasion, but with demands for truth. Demands that were ignored, messages unanswered. Then came the real fight. What shocked her most were the casualty reports. The humans had lost more lives than she ever imagined. And still, they hadn't raised their worlds in revenge. She put the device down, her chest heavy. "All my life," she whispered, "I was taught to hate ghosts." Darren looked up. "Ghosts?" She nodded. "That's what we called your kind. Faceless, silent, full of fire. But now I see. We were the ones wearing masks." Darren didn't reply. He didn't need to. Later that day, a Draca shuttle landed, just outside the city. It wasn't human approved. It arrived fast without warning. Alari rushed to the landing site. Darren and his team were already there. Their weapons were ready but lowered. They were prepared for anything. From the shuttle stepped a group of Draca elites, armor polished, crests high, blades sharp. Among them was Alari's old instructor, the woman who trained her, who broke her bones to teach her strength, who once told her that mercy was poison. "You disgrace your blood," the instructor said coldly, "standing beside our enemy." "I stand beside truth," Alari replied. "Then you've forgotten who you are." Alari stepped forward. "No, I finally remember." Tension filled the air. The humans didn't move. They were watching, waiting. The instructor threw down a small device. It cracked open, displaying orders from the Draca High Council. Alari read them. They were planning to strike again, a surprise attack, another war. She looked at Darren, her voice trembling. "They want to restart everything. They've learned nothing." Darren's jaw tightened. "Then maybe it's time we teach them another way." Alari stepped between both sides. She raised her voice so all could hear. "If we fight again, there won't be a city left. No survivors, no lessons, just more dead." Her instructor snarled. "You've gone soft." "No," Alari said. "I've gone human." The silence that followed was louder than any battle cry. The insult echoed in the broken city square. Alari stood still, but the word still burned. I've gone human. It was the first time she had said it out loud. In front of Draca warriors, in front of the humans, in front of herself. Her old instructor stepped closer, blade still sheathed but her voice sharp like a weapon. You speak like them. You act like them. But you are Draca. You were made for war. Alari didn't step back. I was made to protect my people, not destroy them. The other Draca soldiers watched in silence. Some shifted uneasily, others looked away. None spoke. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting to choose a side. Then Darren broke the silence. She's not the only one who changed. He stepped forward, unarmed, helmet off. His voice was calm, but each word carried weight. When we first came here, we thought we had to crush you to stop the war. But then we saw people like her. People who could think, question, change. So we changed too. Alari looked at him, unsure what to feel. Darren had become something more than just a soldier to her. Not a leader, not a hero, just someone who saw the truth before she did. The Draca instructor drew her blade and tossed it to the ground between them. You will prove your loyalty. Right here. Right now. Kill him. Gasps spread through the Draca crowd. Alari stared at the blade. The metal shimmered with ceremonial markings. It was the blade she trained with. The blade she once swore to never drop. Her hands trembled. Pick it up, the instructor said. Alari didn't move. You still think they won't betray you? The instructor sneered. They're humans. They lie. They wait. Then they strike. Darren didn't speak. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't draw a weapon. He just looked at Alari and said one thing. Your choice. That was the moment Alari understood. All her life, choices were taken from her. She was trained to follow orders, taught to obey commands without question. She had never truly been allowed to choose for herself. Until now. She stepped forward and picked up the blade. Everyone tensed. She held it in both hands, the weight familiar, but her grip no longer matched the rage it once carried. Then she turned and placed the blade at the instructor's feet. I am Draca, she said. And I choose peace. Gasps turned to silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. Her instructor's eyes narrowed. She looked ready to lash out, but she didn't. You are weak, the older woman said. No, Alari said. I'm stronger now than I've ever been. Darren stepped beside her. Not in front, not behind, beside. That meant everything. The instructor picked up her blade, gave one final look of disgust, and walked back to the shuttle. No one followed her. One by one, the other Draca warriors turned away. Some stayed in the city, some simply vanished into the shadows. But no one raised a hand. The attack was canceled without a word. That night, the fires in the camp burned longer than usual, not for battle, but for food, for quiet talk, for strange laughter between beings who used to be enemies. Alari sat with Darren again, this time not as a soldier watching a human, but as something more. You knew I wouldn't do it, she said. No, Darren replied. I hoped. She looked up at the stars. They used to scare me, she whispered. Now, they make me wonder what else I was wrong about. Darren didn't say anything. He just watched her, calm and steady. Something between them had shifted. Again. And for the first time she wasn't afraid of it. The morning after the confrontation, the city felt different. No alarms, no war drums, no shadows creeping around corners. The streets were still cracked and the buildings still scarred, but there was a sense of something new, like breath after drowning. Alari walked through the rebuilt plaza with Darren, not as a captive, not as a soldier, just herself. Children played near the water fountain, Draca and human alike. Some of the humans had removed their helmets for good. They were rebuilding, together, not perfectly, not easily, but honestly, she had never imagined such a thing was possible. You didn't have to risk yourself yesterday, Darren said quietly. But you did. Alari glanced at him. You risked everything when you spared me the first time. We're even. He shook his head. You walked away from everything you were raised to believe. That's not even, that's brave. She didn't know how to reply. Her heart beat strangely when he looked at her like that. Not with control, not with judgment, but with something else, something that made her want to step closer. But before she could speak, a human messenger ran toward them, urgency in his face. Command needs you both. Now. They hurried to the temporary command base. The room was tense. Screens showed movement across the outer region. A signal had been picked up. A rogue Drekka battalion. Heavily armed. Fast approaching. They didn't get the message, one human officer said, or they're coming to erase it. Darren's face darkened. How long? 10 hours. Maybe less. Alari stepped forward. Let me speak to them. The room went quiet. They won't listen, someone said. They might, she replied. If they see I haven't been broken. Darren met her eyes. You sure? No, she said. But I have to try. The plan was simple and dangerous. Alari would fly out alone in a neutral shuttle, unarmed, marked with a peace banner. If she was shot down, the humans would have their answer. If she wasn't, there was a chance. Darren escorted her to the shuttle. As the hatch closed, he paused. You don't owe anyone anything. I know, she said softly. That's why I'm going, because now it's my choice. He placed his hand on the edge of the hatch. If you don't come back, I will, she interrupted. And before she could overthink it, she leaned in and placed her forehead gently against his. A Drekka gesture. One of deep trust. His eyes closed for a moment. Then she boarded the shuttle and disappeared into the sky. The flight was silent. She didn't look at the weapon systems. She didn't reach for armor. She wore plain clothes. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind stayed firm. The rogue battalion appeared on the horizon. Hundreds of Drekka warriors, fully armed. Their ships gleamed under the sun. Alari opened a direct channel. This is Warrior Alari of the Drekka. I come alone. Silence. Then a gruff voice replied, We don't listen to traitors. I didn't betray our people, she said. I learned the truth. You're being led to your deaths for a lie. The ships didn't fire, but they didn't stop either. Alari continued. They could have destroyed us all. But they didn't. They chose peace. I saw it. I lived it. And I chose it. The lead ship drew closer. Her sensors showed weapons powered. Alari stood tall inside the cockpit. No more blind wars, she said into the mic. No more deaths for pride. You can end this now. Just listen. The incoming fire never came. Instead, her screen lit up with a message. Doc, we'll hear what you have to say. Alari stepped off the shuttle into silence. Hundreds of Drekka soldiers stood watching. Their faces were hard, their weapons ready, but none fired. The command deck of the lead ship was cold and wide. Banners hung from the walls, symbols of honor, war, and vengeance. She had once looked up to them. Now they felt like old echoes. At the center stood Commander Korak, a war veteran known for cruelty, not reason. His armor was blackened from dozens of battles. His eyes held no warmth. You speak with human words now, he said. I speak with my own, Alari replied. You come unarmed, unshielded. Why? To give you a choice, Korak growled. I don't need lessons from a traitor. Then, don't listen to me, she said. But look around you, our people are tired, cities are broken, families shattered, and the humans, they didn't burn it all down when they had the chance. Korak sneered. You let them poison your mind. No, she said firmly. They gave me the freedom to use it. That line made some of the younger warriors flinch. Alari turned to them. You were told humans were beasts, that they destroy for pleasure, that they kill without honor. But I have seen more restraint in their silence than we ever showed in victory. One soldier raised his weapon. They invaded our space, killed our own. They responded after we struck first, she said. I've seen the files. I've seen our orders. We attacked first and we lied about it. The room shifted. Whispers started. Korak raised his voice. You believe their data? I believe what I saw, Alari replied. I believe in what they did when they could have ended me and didn't. Korak stepped forward. His blade was drawn. If you kneel now, I may spare your life. Alari stood tall. I'd rather fall standing than live as a tool. Tension exploded in the room. But something was different this time. The blade didn't fall. A Dreka officer stepped forward, his voice steady. Commander, is it true? Did we fire first? Korak looked like a cornered beast. We did what had to be done. The officer didn't move. That wasn't an answer. Another warrior joined him. Then another. Until a line formed between Korak and Alari. No one raised a weapon. They just stood still, silent and watching. Korak looked at Alari one last time. You've broken everything we built. No, she said. I'm trying to rebuild what matters. He turned away and stormed out. No orders, no fight, just defeat. By the time the sun rose over the outer hills, the battalion had returned to the city, not as enemies but as allies, unsure of what came next. Alari stepped out of the dropship and Darren was there. For the first time, she smiled at him. A real smile. Small, tired, but true. You came back, he said. You waited, she replied. She walked beside him as the battalion settled in, helping rebuild what others had tried to destroy. The lines between enemy and ally had blurred, and for once no one was rushing to redraw them. That night, a message came from human high command. Talks were beginning. Dreka leaders, shaken by the collapse of their own front line, had agreed to... Listen, Darren looked at Alari after reading it. You started this. We started this, she corrected. The fires in the plaza glowed warm, not for war but for gathering. And as Alari looked around, at the children laughing, the warriors laying down weapons, and Darren standing quietly at her side, she realized something. The real war had never been out there. It had always been inside. The council chamber was quiet. For the first time in Dreka history, human and Dreka leaders stood in the same room, unarmed, unguarded, and not at war. The flags of both worlds hung side by side. No one spoke for several seconds. Even silence felt sacred now. Alari stood near the center, not as a soldier or a diplomat, but as the bridge that had made this moment possible. Darren stood beside her. He didn't say much. He never had to. His presence alone gave her strength. Across from them stood High Warden Talvek, one of the oldest Dreka council members. His voice had started wars with a single sentence, but now he looked tired, worn by truth. We've read the reports, Talvek said. We've seen what happened at the border and we've seen what you've done, Alari. She nodded but didn't bow. I did what I had to. Not for them. Not for you. For us all. There was no applause, no cheering. Just the deep hum of minds shifting. An agreement was signed that day. Not perfect, not final, but enough. Enough to end the fighting. Enough to begin the rebuilding. Enough to give both sides a chance to understand what they had almost destroyed. Weeks passed. Cities reopened. Schools were rebuilt. Mixed teams of Dreka and humans worked side by side. Not without argument, not without mistakes, but with effort, and that was new. One morning, Alari stood on a cliff overlooking the rebuilt transmission tower, the same one she and Darren had repaired. It now powered most of the valley. Below it, children ran, chasing small drones that flew like birds. Laughter echoed in places that once knew only war cries. She felt someone step beside her. Darren. He didn't speak right away. Finally, he said, "It still feels strange." "What does?" "Peace." She looked at him. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head. "Not for a second." They watched the sunrise together. It bled through the clouds like slow fire, washing the world in gold. She had never noticed how soft light could be. In the past, she only respected the blade. Now she respected the stillness. "I'm not the same," she said quietly. "Good," Darren replied. "I don't know what I am anymore." "You're free." That word meant more than any title. More than warrior. More than commander. Free. They turned toward the path that led down the cliff, where teams were waiting to begin the next project. A bridge to connect both sides of the valley. "Will they ever fully trust each other?" Alari asked. Darren smiled. "Maybe not. But trust doesn't come from words. It comes from action." They walked together down the path. No guards, no threats. Just two survivors choosing to build. Some stared as they passed. A Draca and a human walking side by side. Some still whispered. Some still judged. But most watched. In silence, not with fear, but with curiosity. And that was enough. Years from now, books would be written about the war. About the violence. The losses. But hidden in those pages would be a smaller story. One of a warrior who expected death and found kindness. One of a soldier who chose mercy when he didn't have to. One of a choice that changed not just a life, but a world. And in that quiet revolution, something powerful was born. Not just peace, but hope.